pretty decent rate. But the big firms are charging enormous amounts of money, and I think of it as sort of an asset shifting operation. Instead of getting paid for billable hours, it's just, these big companies are shifting these massive amounts of money to these big law firms, and it's the only way I can make any sense of it. We actually have to work on an hourly basis and provide value, and I think that's what the clients like, is that we're doing specific work, and we're doing what they ask us to do. We're in constant contact with them for an amount of money that is makes sense. They can afford it, and we'll, as I said before, we will participate in strategic discussions about where are you going, what do you want to do, and how can we get there. Sometimes we have to say you can't do that, or we can't do that job for you. It's just not available. I think that's where we primarily have our value is in doing the work that they need to do in a thoughtful way, structuring the job so that economically it can be done. David?
I think just to add to that, if a client is coming to a small firm or for some reason they've been referred to a small firm, I think one of their expectations is going to be that this is not going to be a cookie cutter solution, which is kind of what Brian is talking about. So there, when you go to if you're doing your banking at Wells Fargo, they've got their cookie cutter offerings, right? But if you go to some small regional bank, they can work with you. They've got more flexibility. They've got little thises and that's that they can talk to you about. They'll sit down, do a one-on-one, and that's what a client I think expects from a small firm. They expect to get shoved around by a big firm. It's sort of like our agenda. This is the legal thing that you need. They kind of they kind of expect that. But at a small firm, they're really expecting something much more tailored to what they want and need. And if that means that they're going to start talking to you about something very personal that might affect them in a couple of years, it's not something that they'd share with a big firm necessarily. But they're telling you that because they trust you. It's a smaller place. It's intimate. And it may impact the advice that you give them. So it's really important in a small firm situation to listen to what the client is really saying rather than thinking, well, you know the solution, so you'll just hear you'll get them to say what you need to hear so that you can give them an agenda. And it really shouldn't be that way. They're really looking for the one. I'd say that's the biggest difference. And that's the right that I hear from a lot of my clients who come to me who went to big firms. They weren't listening, they weren't returning calls, they really weren't listening to what I said I really wanted. And then they come to me and they say, this is what I really want. And I might say, well, here's why they weren't listening to you, because what you want is either a little bit silly or not doable. And they say, well, I really want it anyway. Okay, then that's fine, then we'll figure out a way to make it feasible. But at a big firm, they might not go that extra mile. You've got to do that at a small firm. And then keep the client because the client feels heard.
Cecil, you talked earlier about the importance of client development, and to be perfectly honest, when I was a junior associate, it was a subject that was very scary and nebulous. For our audience here, we're all going to be attorneys soon. This is going to be a subject on their mind. What advice do you have to be successful at client development?
Well, I think that it's my own philosophy is that for young attorneys, the best thing you can do is find a mentor who can train you and teach you how to be a good lawyer. And they exist at big firms and they exist at small firms. This is my own personal view. I don't recommend hanging out your shingle by yourself straight out of law school. This is my bias. Other people feel differently and other people have done it successfully. But I think that lawyers need to learn how to be a good lawyer first. And that involves, of course, as I mentioned a million times, writing well, clarity of thinking, but it also involves the intangible of judgment. And that's something that you learn from a more senior attorney. I don't really think that new attorneys are capable of going out and developing clients in some of the more conventional ways because, to be honest with you guys, you don't know what you're talking about yet. So to go tell a client, well, I think you should do it this way, is a little presumptuous. So I think mentorship is your best way to go. Having said that, if you have a particular area of expertise, or you want to develop a particular area of expertise, a topic that you know about better than anybody else, because you've taken the time to study it and write an article that maybe gets published in a law review, or there are many legal publications. If you're the go-to person on XYZ, then you will get calls from clients, you will get calls from other attorneys. And that's something we haven't talked about yet is marketing to other lawyers. General practitioners are one of my main sources of business. Why? Because they know that if they send one of their corporate clients to me, it will be a good referral. They will look good for having sent a client to me. And then there's always the intangible of, I won't try to poach their business. In other words, I will take their client and work their client through a bankruptcy issue. And I won't say, oh, and by the way, we can do that transactional work for you too. There's that trust. So referrals from other lawyers is another source of client development.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. On both the mentorship and the referrals from other attorneys. Our main sources of clients are referrals from existing clients and referrals from other law firms. And it's curious you should say that, because most of our new referrals of good clients are from business law firms that we know. And it's a little bit the same, because we have a specialized practice being in intellectual property. The business attorney will be talking to some corporation, and they'll have these IP issues, so they'll throw it over to us. And we don't coach either. We're very, very careful about that, because because the relationship with the referring attorney is very important. But just so, when I was starting out, and I did hang up my shingle all but myself. It was brutal.
One point of view.
Terrible. It was very difficult. I didn't make any kind of money for 2 or 3 years. It was really difficult. So I don't really recommend that unless you have enough money to sustain you. In which case, what I do recommend is developing an expertise in one area and getting your name out there. So that we know who you are, and that we can send something to you. I remember this one guy years ago. He developed an expertise in lemon law, lemon cars that are lemons. It was just
lemon lawyers.
Lemon lawyers. It was unbelievable. He got all these cases for cars that were lemons. Anyway, whatever, but it worked for him. And so if the law firms in your area know who you are and that you're good at X area, they're going to start sending cases to you if you can last. If you can work with somebody and have them send you clients, that's great, because then you get mentorship and you get some referrals. So however you do it, you can attach yourself to somebody who's willing to train you and nurture your decision making as you grow into practicing law. That's a very good way to go.
For me, the client development, because my practice is a general business practice, I've discovered over the years that you kind of need to, in addition to everything else that's said, you kind of also need to take a step back and figure out what it is that, how it is that you are presenting to your possible clients. Just figuring out who you are, what you want to be doing, because clients can very quickly sniff out when you're not authentic, whether it's because you simply don't know something and you're BSing through something, or because you're just not presenting as somebody as authentic. So that's sort of step one as you go out there and try and develop any sort of client base. And then after that, again, for me, it's really about listening to the client. I mean, You can always figure out by asking around who is the smarty pants in any given area. And if they charge $800 an hour for giving you an answer like that, then the client might go to that kind of person. But not every client wants that. Some clients are willing to say, I don't need the smartest person at $1,000 an hour. I want somebody, again, who's somebody I can talk to, or who's maybe that go-to person because I also need a plumber, and I really trust my lawyer to recommend a plumber, or a certified financial planner, or a bankruptcy attorney, or this person or that person. So you can become something to your clients other than either the smartest, brightest, although of course you have to be that. But they're looking for a whole package, and so you've got to figure out first, what is that package that I'm presenting? Is it I'm super smart, so I don't have to be nice to somebody because I'm a genius, or I'm only sort of kind of smart, so I kind of got to be nice and polite otherwise. Or there's that whole there's that balance, and the client is looking for that. And so you just have to figure out where you land and all of that and put it out there. I go to a lot of events where I know my clients are going to be. If my clients are small businesses and startups, I'm going to go to events where I know that they are, any sort of meetup, that kind of thing, anything like that where you know your clients are going to be. And then I get lots of referrals from CPAs or financial planners, that kind of thing. So I'm going to, knock on their door.
So we talked about the shortcomings sometimes of working at a big firm. But one of the often touted advantages of starting out your career at a big firm is that you get a lot of training. Are there any downsides to recent graduates to working at a small firm and missing out on any training opportunities? David, let's start with you.
Well, so I haven't worked at a big firm, so some training is a funny word because certainly you're getting all kinds of training at a small firm. You're not getting necessarily, as Brian was referring to earlier, you're not getting the, necessarily all the time the opportunity to spend enormous amounts of time and therefore your client's money on something if your client is not a huge company. So you're not getting the kind of training that a big law firm might be able to provide, or a small law firm with big clients, which are rarer, but they exist. So your training is going to be different. It's really going to be more training about making difficult decisions, as Brian was saying. It's going to be about interaction with client, prioritizing, figuring out exactly what's truly important. But yeah, you're not getting the, gee, I get to litigate this asbestos case for 4 years. And how fun is that to just go through discovery and law in motion, and you become the law in motion expert in asbestos. So, not really going to happen at a small firm unless that's all they do, and they manage to get 5 huge clients, and that's all they do. So the training is going to be different. It's going to be more generalized. It's going to be more practical, frankly. So getting big law training and then going to a small firm, I think, is a huge wake-up call for anybody who doesn't know that they might have to punch their own paper to get it into a file. It's like, where are the 5 file clerks on this one case? So I can figure out how to do that. So it's definitely a different kind of training.
Yeah, my dad was a lawyer, and he told me that when he started out for this firm and all they did was litigation, he became an expert at demurs. He was the firm expert on demurs, okay? And that sounds horrible. That's all he do is demurs. I guess he got really good at it. But it sort of tells the story. Is in a big law firm, you're going to be doing one thing, and you're going to get very good at that one thing, and then they maybe move you into something else. And the training is there. There are probably some advantages in a bigger firm because they have organized in-house training. People are always being pressed to review the latest law, write a white paper, put it out there. So you're going to get, by osmosis, a lot of these things that you don't get in a small firm. In a small firm, you get trained as the need arises.